All right, welcome back to Patriots of the Core, episode number 91, and I've got retired Chief Master Sergeant William Markham, who I've known since September of 2010 and wanted to talk to him a long time, but now he's retired, and you got all the time in the world to talk now, don't you, Will?
Yeah, just about old retired guys.
Well, so I saw that you recently were inducted into the USSOCOM Hall of Fame or Hall of Heroes. Is it Hall of Heroes?
Hall of Heroes, yes.
Okay. And then were you also inducted into the 2021 Air Commando Hall of Fame?
Yes. Yeah. I don't think they had anybody else, so they no, it was a great honor, and I'm absolutely humbled by the nomination and the selection.
Yeah, well deserved for sure. Our family thinks the world of you, and you were a rock for us, during that time when Mark was killed in 2010 in that fall. So we really appreciate you. You had 30 years of service, and as much as I'd love to talk to you about your service and what you did in Afghanistan and elsewhere, that has been talked about on several podcasts. I'll probably link to some of those in my show notes. But there are some things I don't know, like were you in the Gulf War, or did you not deploy until Afghanistan, or where were some of your early deployments?
Well, I had cross-trained from being security police, in the Air Force, about 5 years into my career, and the Gulf War, kind of came and went for me. It was I sat over in Germany during that time, and just watched planes, leaving Ramstein, and so no, I didn't get to do a whole lot during that, and I just knew there was, after being a cop, there just was a greater calling. In fact, some of our combat controllers, Kyle Stanbro, being one of them, one of my huge mentors, he was a former cop, and I always used to hear the saying, some of our best combat controllers used to be, security police. So probably because we appreciated what we didn't have and what we wanted to do.
That's interesting. I'll link to my episode with Kyle Stanbro in the show notes too. Yeah, I remember him saying that now that he was police. In 2001, I think you were one of the early ones that was deployed to Afghanistan, probably the same time as Bart Decker. Just correct me. I'm just going to throw out what I think I know. Bart Decker was one of the early ones. I think you were. Can you talk about what your role was and when you went to Afghanistan the first time?
Yeah, I sure can. Initially, we were there we deployed from Herbert Field, Florida. I was with the Mighty 2-3 STS at the time, Special Tactics Squadron. Initially, we went to establish and open Karshi-Khanabad, which is K2 airfield in Uzbekistan, for coalition operations. And 9/11 kicked off, and everybody was going crazy. Everybody wanted to get over and find some justice. But we it took a couple weeks, and with proper planning through SOCOM and AFSOC, we finally got a mission down. And so I went with one of my teammates, Dennis Bernier, who you know well, and we met up with our team leader at the time, Pat Ward, who had a brand new lieutenant in combat control. We went over there and established. Pat went with the 6SOS, and we established the airfield at K2. And it was just to mainly set up coalition air operations. The Uzbekis owned the airfield, and we came in with a pallet full of vodka and money, and basically bought the airfield from them for a certain amount of time. Once we established the airfield and we got more support in, then our unit and airfield contingency operation took over the airfield, and then we immediately went into standing up combat search and rescue contingent with the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, and then soon to be later the 5th Special Forces Group that would roll in and force. Within about a week of being there, my leadership comprised of Pat Bihana, Kurt Buller, Billy White, and you mentioned Bart Decker, all my supervisors and team leaders. they recruited me to be the first airman to be attached to the 1st Special Forces group that would be deployed in Afghanistan. And I was attached to Operational Detachment Alpha Team 555 Triple Nickel. And our main plan was to plan for unconventional warfare operations, be attached with the CIA and the Northern Alliance forces that were friendly to the U.S. We linked up in the Panjshir Valley on the 14th of October. That's just about 60 miles northeast of Bagram Air Base. And then our plan was to work our way from the Panjshir Valley, conduct unconventional operations, which consisted of close air support against the Taliban, and push our way down to Bagram Airfield, and at some point secure and reopen Bagram Airfield for coalition operations. And when we first got that mission, it was, our leaders between General Mulholland, then Colonel Mulholland, Task Force Dagger Commander, and all the way up to CENTCOM, with General Tommy Franks, they expected this to take about 6 months, and we conducted that operation within 25 days.
Wow. Did you utilize horses at all?
No, fortunately, you've met me. I think the first Afghanistan horse that looked at me would have said, "I will step off this freaking cliff if you try to get on me." So, no, we were pretty fortunate. We weren't any of the horse soldiers. We were, we had vehicles right from the very start, and we conducted regular military operations in Afghanistan.
So is there anything else that you want to say? I know we could go forever on that, but anything you want to say in particular about your first deployment to Afghanistan?
Oh man, it was just surreal. I joke back now with people like Colonel Kurt Poehler, who's now retired, and Senior Master Sergeant Bart Decker, who's retired, and just the team guys that were team guys with me at the time and leadership at the time. I always joke that they sent me first because they wanted to get rid of me, but it was just the great thing about SOF is we're so networked, we know everybody. So the great thing about getting attached to ODA 555, the Triple Nickel, was immediately when I went into the isolation tent with them, it was seeing Master Sergeant Greg McCormick, who was my swim buddy from Key West when I went through dive school, meeting and now working with Scott Zastro, who was the SF medic on the team, then became a PA, now is our medical consultant for our nonprofit, meeting Steve Gruel and another SF medic who, it was the heart of the team, and just that network and, previous past experiences with these people that just made the team so great. And I truly think that's why we function so well, because we got along so well.
Yeah, you threw out some names, Buller and Decker, and they are former guests on my show. I haven't had Bernier on. Mark called him, or did everybody call him Big Sarge? Is that right?
Yeah, Big Sarge, Heavy D. Dennis is a force to be reckoned with. He's such a teddy bear, such a sweetheart of a man, and getting to go. I went through. I was a team behind Dennis going through the pipeline, and Dennis didn't make it all the way through and ended up becoming a combat or a TAC P, and then later in his career became a combat controller. So I got to see Dennis from, being a fellow team guy to, me being the chief at the 2-1 STS, and Dennis Bernier was now the team sergeant, and, Mark's team sergeant. So it was just really neat to see how his career path went and all the great and exciting things he did. I mean, especially with everybody. I mean, Kurt Buller, Bill White, Bart Decker. I mean, just, phenomenal mentors that I had to work with and help me with a very difficult task, but one that we were successful in. And it was only because of the people that I surrounded myself with to make that happen.
Yeah. Now, you got the Silver Star. Was it from that first deployment in Afghanistan?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Will, thinking back on your career, what are some of your greatest successes?
You know, I've had this type of question before, and I've listed off personal successes that I've had, and then one time when I was asked this, it just hit me, because none of my successes came without a price. None of my successes came without, again, surrounding myself with the smartest, sharpest, fastest people that, helped me get to, where I am today. So I would say that's a kind of a twofold question. I would say, first, by providing my leadership the information needed to make informed decisions that affected morale, welfare, and the lives of my teammates and their families. I think that is, anytime somebody lists their success, as a personal thing, I think that's my opinion, Will Markham's opinion, it's the wrong answer. I think you can measure your success by how well the people you were with, how well they did. How did somebody that you worked with, how did they succeed because you gave them the resources necessary to succeed? And I think that's how success should be measured. And, back, just a couple years ago, taking this question and really taking a hard look at it and being less selfish, I think that's how you measure success, is by, what did you do to make other people succeed? And if other people succeeded because of you or with your help, then man, that's all the success you need.
What about some of your greatest challenges or failures?
Oh, well, you and I have a personal connection over that, because I think that the greatest challenges were, losing teammates and friends, and, having to be there for the families. And I wouldn't say it's a failure, but it's definitely probably the greatest challenge is how do you look at that family and say, your loved one had everything they needed. They had all the resources they needed. They had all the training they needed, because that's never going to be true, because there's always more. There's always more. So you take a look at that and you look at yourself as a leader and go, man, how can I honestly say this to the family? I can say honestly to the family, we did everything we could to provide that, but as a personal note, you can always do more. So I think that's the biggest challenge. And then I think the other challenge that I face is just trying to find people that are willing to find the way to yes for something that needs to be done. I think that's, that is so minor in the big scheme of things, but losing teammates and friends, I think, is the biggest challenge I ever had to do, because you have to really take a personal look and go, man, did I provide everything for that person's survival? And it's a hard question to ask yourself. I've heard leaders say that before, and I'm like, nope, we didn't. We got that one wrong, and that's a hard reality to face.
I've heard you, or I've seen you at least, say on LinkedIn about find the way to yes. I imagine, is this accurate? You're the kind of guy that if you ask someone a question, especially someone that reports to you, you don't want to hear, and they don't know the answer, you don't want to hear them say, I don't know, and leave it at that. Maybe it's like, hey, I'll find out. Is that accurate for you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I used to, stupid trivia when I was coming up through the ranks. I had, supervisors and NCOs and chiefs and team leaders do it to me, but it's just, you can judge a lot by a person by asking them the most simple question. And if they don't know it, there's the easy way, the easy button to say, oh, I don't know, but there's the find the way to yes, and they'll find out the answer, they'll research the answer, and then guess what? They'll never ever forget that answer.
Yeah, I've been reading, or I finished General Armfield's book, Lead to Serve and Serve to Lead. By the way, he's going to be on he and Bruce Pfister will be on. I'm going to interview them in about 2 weeks to talk about that book. But they talk about this too, and talk about using the word yet. I haven't figured that out yet. And my first boss, when I started working full time out of college, he taught me that because he asked me a question, and I said, I don't know. And he was a great teacher, and he said, don't ever say I don't know. And I learned from there. I just don't. I was like, hey, I don't know. I'll find out though.
Yeah, it's almost you don't. In General Armfield, I mean, there's a person you do not want to disappoint. It's not a fear factor. It's not, it's not this big, huge, scary guy, but he just has that way about him. And Mike LaMonica is another one. Bart Decker is another one. There's just those people that you will die before you disappoint them. And it's, if they ask you something, you want to go about every way to find the answer for them. And that's such a rare leadership, quality and capability that people have.
So Will, since retiring, did you retire in 2016?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
April 1st, 2016, and then my end of service was the end of June 2016. So 30 years and 30 days. Yeah.
Okay. So since then, what I know, you've had your hands in several things, but what all have you done? I know we're going to talk about the Patriot Fund for sure. I'd like to talk about Project OVAT, but I know you've been in Special Operations Warrior Foundation. Can you just touch on some of the things that you've done before we get to maybe your most recent ventures?
Well, I've done the same thing that I wanted to do my entire military career. And the question was asked to me by Jeff O'Hara, my president of Project OVAT, hey, what is it you want to do when you grow up? And I said, I just want to continue to help people. I think that's there's a lot of people out there that will help people, but to help them, selfishly, without any reservation, without any, taking care of people is the priority. And so I've just always wanted to do that. And I want to, to the naysayers, I want to help those people find the way to yes. I want to fight for our veterans. I want to fight for our service members, and I want to fight for their families. And that's the only way to do it is by fighting for other people. And, not saying that the mission comes first, but, you help people, and then the rest will follow.
When Mark was killed, before the funeral, somebody contacted me, a family friend, and said, we want to donate something. What's an organization that we can donate to in Mark's name? And I had no clue at the time. The only organization at that time that I knew that helped our military or veterans was Wounded Warrior Project. And, since obviously I've been exposed to many organizations and many nonprofits, but how do people tell, what is an effective nonprofit and one that uses the money to actually help people versus just paying, high salaries and, high rent, that kind of thing?
Yeah, it's probably my last 20 years in the Air Force, I was really dedicated to a couple veteran nonprofits that we thought were really doing, good work for our service members and their families. And as I retired and I got into the nonprofit world, just like any business, there's really good nonprofits, and then there's nonprofits that you just kind of raise your eyebrow at and go, what are you really doing to affect our veterans and the service members and their families today, and at what cost? And so I just think people just need to do their due diligence. One of the things we do with the Patriot Fund, we've supported this last year, we supported 35 veteran nonprofits, and you got to kind of take a look at the veteran nonprofits. I mean, before 2001, you could name the veteran nonprofits on, two hands, and, take your shoes off and count your toes as well. But then after, 9/11, and after all of the, I don't want to say the shortfalls that the government doesn't provide, but all the things that are out there to provide for our veterans and families. I mean, we have 55,000 plus veteran nonprofits that are registered with the IRS. So
whoa.
People just need to do their due diligence. I one of the first things when people ask me, like, who should I donate to? And I'm like, well, take a look at their 990, take a look at their IRS form 990, make sure they're still a registered 501c3. And look what's on there. Study the 990. It's just like looking at somebody's, when political leaders run for office, everybody wants to see their IRS forms. I mean, take a look, and if there's people within that organization that are making a hell of a lot more money than you are, then you might not have to donate to them. You might want to look for these smaller mom and pop organizations that are, paying the actual people that are getting the work done, either through consulting or contracting or an employee. But they're figureheads, I look at myself as a senior leader. I'm a retired senior leader. I received a retirement, a pension, and compensation and pension from the VA. My duty as a senior leader is still to serve and protect our, service members and their families and our veterans. And so I take great pride in doing that. And should I be compensated? In some forms, yes, like travel, doing certain things, but should I receive an exuberant salary for doing this? No, because that money from our donors and sponsors needs to go to what that organization's core mission is. And if it's doing whatever A to Z, then make sure we're doing that. But again, Dad, I just tell people, take a look at the organization's 990. Every organization out there is good. Everybody's got a great mission. Just how they conduct that mission, that's a scale you got to balance.
Yeah, and I've done that with some, and I've looked at some where that people that are paid over $100,000 salaries, and it just I kind of have a hard time with that with some of these nonprofits. So
yeah, and I mean, you get what you pay for too. Like in order for some organizations to do their mission, there may be some former corporate leaders or I can't even say it with a straight face, Dad, I'm sorry, but retired generals and admirals that think they have a calling to collect a lot of money from a veteran nonprofit. To me, that I just think that's criminal. But it's out there, and you get what you pay for, so you just gotta take it for what it's worth. But like I said, every organization out there is doing great things. Some more than others. Some are affecting the veteran and their families immediately. But you just gotta do your research and do your own due diligence.
Yeah, that's good advice. I was talking to a company a few weeks ago, representatives from a company, and telling them, hey, I'm trying to find somebody to sponsor the porta potties for the walk we do every year. Those are probably our biggest expense because we have some great volunteers now that help with the different stop rest areas with snacks and with lunch.
Yep.
But the porta potties are like, we're looking at less than $1,000. And so I was explaining this to someone, and I said, look, we're a small nonprofit with little overhead. And Dad was standing there, and Dad said, little, no overhead. And it's true. Our overhead is like, well, we got to pay somebody to host our website. We got to have somebody to. Well, I guess that's just about it. Domain registration, those little things, but that's it.
Yeah, you have expenses you got to pay. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There's expenses you got to pay.
But you're right. You get what you pay for, and so we do what we can with our little organization. I believe you started Project OVAT before you went to the Patriot Fund. Is that right?
Yes, I was working for another organization and ended up, as I found out over the last 6 years I've been retired, a lot of our veterans are leaving the service either former or retired, and they're not receiving the proper VA compensation and pension that they should be receiving. And the nickname for that is disability, and we're trying to take the word disability out of the compensation and pension, because it's, if somebody told me when I retired, hey, you're 100% disabled, I tell them to go pound sand, because I'm not 100%, disabled. I can still, somewhat function, but I have psychological issues and I have physical issues that I've recognized now, and other people have helped me recognize it, through therapy and counseling and, medical treatment. I'm able to identify this stuff now. And so we want to get some of these words, changed back to compensation and pension, but a lot of them just, it's, I had a retired officer tell me one time, and it was kind of the biggest cop out I've ever heard. They said, Will, VA comp and pen is a lot like awards and decorations. There's going to be people that get it and people that don't. And so I asked them, I said, well, then what are you doing to make sure that people that don't get it or don't get assessed properly, get that second chance, or get that second or third or fourth or fifth look at it? And his reply was like, well, nothing. I got mine. And man, that burned a fire in my belly to make sure that, our veterans were taken care of. And I ended up having the same issue. I retired. I received 100% comp and pen, and then went in for a checkup about 18 months later. And the nurse, in about 7 minutes, determined that I had gotten better, and my comp and pen was reduced to 30%. So I no longer received my VA health care, which was the only health care I had at the time, because I was 100%. Why should I have supplemental or paid insurance?
Yeah.
And then the compensation, the pension part of it was then removed. In fact, they wanted me to pay back pay, and it took me a little bit of time to reach out and ask for help, but I finally did, and it was a 2-year battle with the VA. And it wasn't because the VA they're not evil people. There's not people that get up in the morning and go, when I go into work today, I'm going to really ruin a veteran's life. It's a system. It's a bureaucratic system that you have to have paperwork filled out properly, and there's accountants and lawyers that look at it, and how you answered a number of questions determines what comp and pen you get. And I think it's an old, outdated system. The VA is trying to get it better. They're trying to get it right. They're trying to find the way to yes. And so there's these organizations out there that help our veterans with it. But the cruel thing that we found out is, again, you get what you pay for. So you can get it for free and go to the VFW, go to the DAV, and they have excellent people that work for them, but they're just so overtasked. And then there's these law firms and these other organizations that charge the veteran $2,500, $5,000, $10,000, $15,000. They'll receive a portion of, whatever back pay you get, or you'll pay a portion of your monthly stipend to them until your billable hours paid off. And the people I hang out with and the people that I've surrounded myself with, we just thought that was wrong. There's no reason our veterans should be paying for a benefit that they have earned and deserved. And so after my 2-year battle, we started Project OVAT, and we wanted every veteran that went through our program to be felt like, they're the only one that we're putting through the system, and they're the only one that matters to us. And so we said one at a time, and it's not a foundation. It's a project. And so a good bottle of scotch, and a few months later, we came up with Project OVAT, and it's just wonderful. We're helping our veterans. We've had such great success stories with getting our veterans to the level of comp and pen that they deserved and earned. We're not gaming the system. We're getting them to where they need to be.
Do you have someone assigned to that veteran, or is it like an ally that speaks for them, or do they just walk them through and give them guidance on what to say next, or who to talk to, or how does it work?
We partnered with the law firm that helped my case out, Jim Wardell Law Firm here in Tampa, Florida. His law firm is a VA comp and pen law firm. He's got a great young man, a former Marine, Josh Boykin, that works for him, and we have that legal side covered. So if there's an appeal or a hearing that we need to get, we have a legal side that represents the veteran, and then we have a medical side. And as I mentioned earlier, Scott Zastro, one of my teammates on Triple Nickel that I was attached to, now is one of our medical consultants, and then I got a great friend, a great couple that actually moved down to Florida to help us with Project OVAT, Lyle and Amy Rosine. Lyle's a former paralegal by trade, and Amy's a former personnelist by trade, and retired 26 years and 30 years of service. So between the three of us, Lyle handles all the case management of the veteran, and Amy takes care of all the administrative paperwork we got to do. So we get to help that veteran through the process so they're not feeling alone at it. And it's just been such a great system. In the last 3 years, we put 67 people through the program. And we started out, we weren't even a nonprofit. We had just, I had luckily friends in high places that could just, support a check and have us, pay the law firm or pay the medical consultant or pay the trip for the veteran to go up to Princeton and, see our vice president, Doc Mark McLaughlin, who is the, world-renowned, brain and spine specialist. And, it's just, again, finding the way to yes. And myself, Lyle, and Amy don't get paid. We pay our consultants that actually do the work. And it's just a way to save a lot of money and get our veterans taken care of.
Yeah.
One at a time. Yeah. By the end of this year, we should be right at about 85, almost 90. My team keeps telling me, hey, keep bringing on cases. It's a referral only. So that's how we kind of, people don't apply to us. People that go through our system, we ask two things of them and two things only. They'll never reimburse us or give us money. But the two things we do ask for them is we ask them for a testimonial that we can share, like on our stories of success, and share with our donors and sponsors so they can understand the plight of that veteran going through the system and what kind of challenges they were faced with. And then we ask them for a referral because that's how we got, I was patient 0, and that's how we got patient, 1 and 2 was I knew 2 other people that were hurting and not receiving the proper comp and pen that they should be in. So that's how we get people that's how we get people into the program. And then our consultants, do the yeoman's work, and they get people through the system. Yeah. And then we have some really good success stories at the end.
Well, what brought you to the Patriot Fund?
So the Patriot Fund was an organization that I worked with when I was with a former foundation, and they helped us get on the map. The president of it, the Patriot Fund was, their main thing is to provide funding for critical services veterans have earned and deserve, and it sustains their lifelong needs. So they're a fundraising arm. There's not it's been established for just a little over 6 years. It's not an operational charity, meaning that they don't have a certain mission, per veteran. But what we do is we support, like I said, we supported 35 veteran nonprofits in 2021 with substantial grants. So we just raise money. And like your question you had, what veteran nonprofit should I give to? Well, let me tell you, we have a list, and we do our due diligence, and we interview all the organizations that we support, and man, there's some of them, and yep, they have highly paid, CEOs and presidents, but they get the money that we give them, and that goes into a restricted fund that specifically helps, this veteran or that family, and the organizations we work with are just so great. But the Patriot Fund was one of our first supporters. When I told Todd Sherman I was leaving a different foundation, and this is what me and Jeff O'Hara and Mark McLaughlin were starting. Todd Sherman was the first light at the end of the tunnel to go, well, we love what you do. We know you're going to do great, and we're here to help support you. And the Patriot Fund is the biggest supporter of Project OVAT.
Okay, I'm looking at the website now, and if I'm on the right page, I'm seeing several organizations: Consequence of Habit,
yep.
Military Women's Memorial, Megan's Foundation. I've seen a few associated with service dogs. Yeah, a lot of American Gold Star Mothers. Yeah, a lot of them listed here.
Yeah, and so I want to have you help me find the way to yes, and how do we get the Mark Forrester Foundation added to that list?
Yeah, it's a good question because I want to see it on here. I can help you with that pretty easy. No, that's a great question. Well, we would love that.
No, and we love supporting those organizations that you hear those. I don't want you to ever have to ask for porta potties again. Just call me and we will take care of it.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. And what was cool is I was asking this person from this company, and I was asking them of who because they had already donated some money to the foundation. I was just seeing, hey, who else do you know in town, other businesses that I could ask? And they just said, hey, we got that covered. Don't worry about it. And
yeah.
I just really appreciate it. It's very small to some people, but that's a big expense to us.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing in nonprofit is you find the corporate partners that are able to, they may not, I get it, everybody's hurting. COVID put a hurt on everybody, and you really have to search for the donor and sponsor dollar, but corporations can, give a gift in kind. They can provide a service for you, and because you're a nonprofit, that can be a tax write-off for them, based on that value of whatever they're providing for you. So,
right.
Just other avenues to look at.
Your website or Patriot Fund lists, a lot of stats on the website, and some of these, I've heard probably many times, but most of them, these are really, they're tough stats to read. And one in particular is veterans are at 50% higher risk of suicide than their peers who have not served. Why is that?
Yeah, I believe the pressure of service and the commitment of those members is much like those, first responders. Anybody that's in a high-paced job, they're going to experience, higher kinetic effects. Meaning, policemen and policewomen, sheriff's deputies. They're at war, every day. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but the great thing about the military and special operations is, we were home and we trained. We trained and trained and trained and trained, and then we would go to a foreign country, and then we knew we were, then we were in the war. But, take a look at the effects of COVID on our first responders. I think service members just have they have a higher calling. I'd say 99.9% of the service members today, their higher calling is, it's service before self, and those pressures that, they get from that, puts a huge burden on their, on their psyche, on their physical makeup, on their mental makeup. And, unfortunately, some of them go into the military with some issues, and then those issues are just, magnified, by the experiences that they have gone through. And so, we look at the National Library of Medicine for a lot of our statistics and, a lot of the professional publications, for that support. But, I just truly believe that it's the mission that service members, raise their right hand to do. It's going to affect some different than others. And being that it's less than 1% of the populace, and having, 20% of suicides across the nation are service members or veterans, man, that's just an alarming number that we have to get our hands wrapped around. And so the organizations that we support through the Patriot Fund, whether it be equine therapy, service dog, just take a look at any of the organizations that we support. They're probably impacting the lives of that veteran in one shape, form, or matter that maybe helps them go to the next day. Like, man, I had a good day and I can't wait for tomorrow. And if we can keep instilling that into our veterans and their families, like, man, I had a good day today and I want to be here tomorrow. Like, that stuff I was dealing with, and I got to talk to somebody, or I got this service animal next to me, or I got my battle buddy with me. And it is really not that big of a deal, or it is a big deal and I'm getting help for it. I think that helps them, get over that edge. But again, not that our job is any more important than any other job out there, but I think the service and the security and freedom of our nation takes a pretty good toll on our individuals.
Yeah, good insight. Will you elaborate on the benefits of service dogs?
Dad, do you have a pet?
Yeah, we got one to be a service dog for our youngest son.
Yeah.
And he drives me crazy. But no, they love each other, that's for sure.
Yeah, I've had pets most of my adult life, and when I was younger. I can tell you right now, the last 15 years, the 4 dogs that me and my wife have gone through, 2 current and 2 past. If it wasn't for that unconditional love that a pup can bring to you, man, I wouldn't be here today. But I think the impact of a service dog is, if you don't love a dog, there's something wrong with you. And anybody that's listening out there, if you don't love dogs, this isn't a personal dig, but like, man, I when my dog doesn't like somebody, I'm kind of skeptical of them.
Yeah,
I'm kind of like, I don't know, but man, I just think a dog brings out the best in us. And the thing with a service dog, it is with that handler, it is with that veteran 24/7. There's not many cases where that veteran or service member does not have that service dog with them. And so, like my 2 pets, my one rescue dog from the Tampa Humane Society, Stella, she's a little whippet, lab mix, something. She knows when I have anxiety. She will come up and, jump on my lap or, lick my face, or if for some reason I lose my temper and I yell, she immediately comes to me and puts her paws on me, and it completely relaxes me. And that's just a stray dog. That's just my pet. So these organizations that train these service dogs, and they work with these industry professionals and these mental health professionals to provide this dynamic interaction between the pup and the veteran or first responder, or name the person. All you gotta do is fill in the blank. But they just provide that connection, that unconditional love that no other human can. And I just, man, service dogs save lives, period.
What brought about Warrior Canine Connection, doing a service dog in training named after Mark?
So this is, I talk about Mark all the time, Dad. I do. I truly do. I talk about him all the time. Everybody that works with me knows Mark. especially on the anniversary. The anniversary is just, it's a tough day, but I know it's a tougher day for you guys. So we try to support you guys with whatever, you need or what you're feeling. But man, just everybody knows about Mark, and, the Patriot Fund, we provide grants to our operational partners. And one of my most favorite operational partners are the Canine Service Dog partners. I mean, not that, there's no, bias or no favoritism towards them, but they're just like, you can't put a story up about a dog and its handler. You can't beat that story at all. In fact, when I would publicly speak, about the Patriot Fund or Project OVAT or the former foundation I was with, and I my standing rule was I'm not going behind the canine people, because once the canine people go, nobody cares what anybody else says, so, it's due to my love for pups and the unconditional love we receive from them. And again, if it wasn't for my pups, I know I wouldn't be here, but, Warrior Canine Connection, like many of the service dog organizations, have a program, and this is where we find our donors and sponsors, but they basically have a program that if you donate enough money, you get to name a service pup after a former service member that was, lost, and then this is how they provide the sponsorship, for that service dog. And our title sponsor for the Patriot Fund Invitational that we had last year was Republic Bank with Mr. Vernon Hill, and he is a huge canine service dog supporter. Him and his wife Shirley, I mean, they walk around everywhere with their dog, Sir Duffy, this little, white, little white lap dog, and and I knew when I met Mr. Vernon Hill, I would never forget his dog name, Sir Duffy, because it's named after, one of the greatest pararescuemen in the world, Scott Duffman, who we would call Duff or, Duffy. Like I said, a lot of my professional partners that I deal with know Mark, and they know his story, they know his anniversary, and the Patriot Invitational was just, I think like a week and a half after Mark's, anniversary, after his death anniversary. And my president, Todd Sherman, and Mr. Hill, Mr. Vernon Hill, thought it would be a nice gesture and a great surprise for me that I didn't know he was donating the money that we would, give Warrior Canine Connection for the sponsorship. And I did not know that the plan was to, obviously after, permission from your family, is that we would name the service pup that was, going to be born in the early spring, that we would name it after Mark, and, Forrester would be its name. And when we first started doing this, I was just like, man, what a way to give a living memorial for an individual. It's not I can go down to the I can go on MacDill Air Force Base, go to the SOCOM, Special Operations Memorial, and I can see Mark's name, which every time I'm on MacDill I go and do, and I see the 19 other guys that we lost on there. But this is a living memorial, so the handler knows Mark's story. The organization that raised the pup knows Mark's story. The family of the handler knows Mark's story. Every person that comes in contact with that service dog is going to know Mark's story. So, man, Mark's name goes on forever. And I truly think, I was so happy that the family gave us permission to do this. But think about it. This service dog is going to do what Mark always did. He always helped his fellow human, and whatever he could do to save their lives, he would do it. And that's what that service canine pup does.
Yeah, I don't think there's any better way for him to help right now. Is that right there? That's a great point. Well, I love seeing the updates. He's getting big. Golly, I would love to meet that rascal one day.
Yeah, we need to. whatever we got to do to get you guys to the graduation. In fact, the Patriot Fund we have a kind of I don't want to say small private. We have a 100-person event up in Case Valley in Maryland next Monday. So Saturday, me and my daughter and Amy and Lyle were flying up to Maryland on Saturday. On Sunday, the 17th, we're going to go over to Warrior Canine Connection. Amy and Lyle are going to get to meet Forrester for the first time. My daughter Shauna is going to get to meet Forrester for the first time. We're going to, get a little tour of the compound up there, which is set in this, beautiful farm country, right outside DC. And Jennifer Ewald, I think that's how you pronounce her last name. Jennifer is the trainer for Forrester right now, so she's going to come down and we're going to spend a couple hours with them and take them out to lunch and see how Forrester does in a public environment. But I'm just so jazzed to get to go see Forrester again. And when I did the interview with them a couple months ago now, man, seeing Forrester for the first time, it brought out smiles and tears, and man, it was just great. But Thad, whatever we got to do to make sure you and the family are at the graduation, you guys are going to be at that graduation.
Oh, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, that interview you referenced, the video came out just a few days before Memorial Day this year, and really powerful. I think it was just 6 minutes long, something like that, but it's got a lot of views. I haven't checked it in many weeks now, but it got shared a lot. Will you talk about that? Because it was called the Forrester Way, and why do you say that, the Forrester Way?
It was, I would be reluctant to say who coined that phrase or how it came about. I think it's just, I don't know if it was from Bobby or Dennis or, the team or, our support staff, our combat support staff that we had at the Mighty 2-1 STS where, Mark was assigned, and, when I was his chief, I mean, we just had a great group of people. I've to this day, never been in a finer unit. And, just somehow that saying, that phrase came out, the Forrester Way. It's the saying that EX and Sean Gleffy and Captain Baird, it's just something we came out with, and we heard it. Again, I don't know who coined it, and whoever wants to claim it, I would love to know who it was, because I just think it's one of the most important things that changed my life. And it's like, how do you emulate somebody that was so professional, so well grounded, and stood for helping everyone? I mean, there's no one word that would describe everything that Mark was about. So it just became, the Forrester Way. It's like finding the way to yes, and then it just became the Forrester Way, and it literally changed my life. I wasn't, at the time of Mark's death, and I think I still question it today, but man, I wasn't a good father, I wasn't a good husband, and I wasn't even a good human being. And just something about Mark and that saying of the Forrester Way, it made me strive every day to change my life for the better. And I'm sure there's a couple hundred stories out there of people that knew Mark, or people that were in the unit, or the leadership at the time, and we just continued since 2010 to say the Forrester Way. And if it's helped or changed anybody's lives for the better, man, that's all because of Mark.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Will, the last question, I know this could go like really deep, and I'm not really asking for that. It's whatever you want to say, but
yeah.
You were part of the notification party that went to my parents.
Yeah.
And I've always wanted to talk to you about this, and probably maybe more in depth another time, but I don't know, what impact did that have on you? How did you prepare for it? how did you deal with it? How did you, as a leader, how did you control yourself in whatever way you needed to control yourself in that situation? Can you just talk about that notification and maybe how it affected you and how you handled it?
Yeah, this is something no senior leader wishes on anybody. It's the respect, for this no-fail mission. It's a no-fail mission, and I think, then Colonel Armfield, now General, retired Brigadier General Armfield. When you become a senior leader, you start, you're not a, especially in ST, you're not a team guy anymore. You kind of have to be the voice of reason to the commander, and I think it was during one of Colonel Armfield or General Armfield's commander conferences, and we discussed this. This was before Mark had been killed, and we discussed we had the chaplain there, we had the psych there, and we discussed, because we had lost a few ST guys. At the time, not from my unit, we lost Will Jefferson back in 2008 when I first got to the unit, and I was deployed during that, so there wasn't a notification process. It was the shut up and color and get on with the mission, and recover Will's stuff and do accountability of it, and do a quick memorial, and get him and an escort back to the United States so they can deal with it back there, and we continue mission. And so, fortunately or unfortunately, I had always been involved with the Charlie Mike, the continue mission. We'll grieve, we'll do the memorial, but then, man, it's combat operations, because I still have men and women out on the battlefield, and that's what I got to concentrate on. But for Mark, it was completely different, because, I had sent my second senior NCO, Brian Bailey. We had selected him to go downrange along with the commander, Parks Hughes, and me and Ed Lochran, the DO, the director of operations at the time. We would stay, in the rear and run the organization. Something I was good, bad, or different, but something I was completely unfamiliar with, because I was not on the deployment when my unit was deployed, which, I think that was the first time that had ever happened. And so I was going through the Chiefs Leadership course up in Montgomery, Alabama, and man, we got the call. I want to say I got the call like around 2:30 in the morning, saying that Mark was killed, and we looked at the death letter, and we knew you were up in Tuscaloosa, and Pat and Ray were in Haleyville, and Parks and General Armfield said, "How fast can you be there?" And we got there, and it's just, again, it's a no-fail mission, and we just had to put our personal feelings aside and make this no-fail mission a success by, there's no success in telling anybody that their brother or son is dead. There's no success in that. The success is that they heard it from us. They didn't hear it in social media. They didn't hear it from a family member of another operator that was downrange, because they thought they should be the one to say anything. The success came in that we professionally and with dignity and with respect delivered that information the best way possible to you and your family. And it's just, you have to be at your finest at that moment, because the receiving end, the family on the receiving end needs that. It can't be a shit show. It's gotta be 100%. And if you're not willing to go into it 100%, then you need to find somebody else to do it. Man, it hurt. It hurt bad, because this was being the chief of the unit, and knowing Mark, and the professionalism and how mature he was. You just did not think that would happen to him, but lo and behold, he went and on that battlefield to save another teammate. Man, he paid the ultimate sacrifice. So it changes a family's life forever, and it changes the lives of the people that were involved with it. And kind of back to your question, it comes from the realism that a senior leader will take the time to make sure that it goes flawlessly, and that everybody finds the way to yes on it, because the Air Force in a whole doesn't do notifications like we do in special operations, especially that in special tactics, that the Air Force still has probably not seen eye to eye with the way we do it. But when you have, the force of, Gwyn Armfield making shit happen so that we can do this no-fail mission 100% and give your family the respect and dignity it deserves, then you're willing to do that.
Yeah. We all did it, and we'll never forget you for that. And obviously, you may not want to be remembered for that, but that's the way you did it was as good as it could have been done. I firmly believe that. And if you remember, we had an assembly at the high school the day before the funeral.
Yeah.
And this was kind of a last-minute thing. They wanted somebody to speak, and Joseph spoke, I spoke, I think you spoke. You did a great job. But on the way to the school or on the way back, we had just gotten some news about some potential protesters from Westboro Baptist Church, and we were obviously not in the best place. And I remember I was ticked, and I said something like, how can this even be allowed to happen? Something like that. And I believe it was you. I'm curious to see what you remember. I think you're the one that said, we fight for their right to do this too. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Was that you? And what did you really say?
Well, that's why that's why less than 1% of the nation is willing to lay their lives on the line for our nation. It's because we want, it's like when Kaepernick took a knee. Like, it truly didn't bother me, because that's what we fight for. That's what we fight for, a nation where we're free to express ourselves. We're free to, exercise our, freedom of speech. And, just as, may not like it, most things that, probably 99.9% of the stuff that comes out of their mouths is garbage anyways, but they have the right to do it because we fought for that right. Again, it doesn't make it right, and I don't agree with it, but I've seen people beheaded and executed because they expressed what they thought was right. And man, we're just so happy to live in a nation that doesn't happen, and that's why we serve, is to fight for others that can't, and to keep our nation free.
That gave me great perspective then, and great perspective now for the listeners, so thank you. I've spoken to groups several times over the years, and I've brought this up, and I talked about it even recently when I was in California on Memorial Day. Will, what else would you like to say in closing?
Man, Dad, I just, you and the family have you're always in my heart. Even if we don't talk all the time, we have our lives, but I'm a phone call, I'm a text, I'm an email away, whatever you and the family ever need, I'm indentured, whatever you need, I'm here for you all the time.
Well, we certainly appreciate that. We appreciate you and your many years of service and sacrificing your time away from your family and your body and your health, and glad you are where you are now. It sounds like you've gone through some deep valleys and you've come out on top, or you're at least doing well to get there on top. So just very happy for you, Will.
Yep, just continue to do the best I can at, living my life the Forrester way.